This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really going for it, right down to the foundations of, well, a huge chunk of Western thought.
Yeah, we're dusting off Aristotle.
Yeah.
Specifically, his metaphysics.
And we're looking at maybe his most powerful, certainly influential, but also really contested idea, the unmoved mover.
Mm-hmm. And our mission for you today, well, it's a full analysis. We're not just going to define it.
Yeah.
We want to dig into the assumptions Aristotle was making, about causality, and trace it back to Plato, which is fascinating.
Right.
And then, crucially, look at the modern challenges.
Yeah.
Because, boy, has this concept taken some hits.
Okay, so ground zero. Aristotle's looking at the universe. Everything's moving, changing.
Dynamic, yeah.
And he needs an explanation, like the ultimate source. What kicked it all off?
Exactly. And his answer, the core premise in the sources, is this unmoved mover. The ultimate cause, the buck stops here kind of thing.
It doesn't need something else to move it.
Right. And the cornerstone, really, is his argument that the ultimate state, the final destination, if you like, of a dynamic world has to be static, unchanging.
Okay, hold on. Why? I mean, he argued that the chain of causes can't just go back forever, right? The infinite regress problem.
Precisely. You can't have turtles all the way down, basically. To stop that endless chain, you need something that just is. It causes motion, but isn't caused by motion. It exists on its own terms.
But why demand stasis? If the universe is dynamic, maybe infinite in time, like some modern ideas suggest, why couldn't the ultimate cause also be, well, dynamic?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah. What's the philosophical need for this absolute static perfection at the root of it all?
Well, it comes down to Aristotle's assumption about teleology, purpose, goal-directedness.
Okay.
He believed things move towards a goal, an end state. If the ultimate cause was also moving or changing, then it wouldn't be the ultimate goal, would it?
It'd just be another step in the process.
Exactly. Just another link. So for Aristotle, the ultimate source had to be perfect, complete, and therefore unchanging, static. That's the fixed target everything else aspires to.
So it's an assumption he's bringing to the table about perfection equals static.
Absolutely. And it forces you, the listener, to think, do we still make assumptions like that about ultimate truth or laws needing to be fixed?
Which, okay, that leads us to a potential weak spot, right? If the philosophy is built on assumptions, and those assumptions get tied to a scientific view of the cosmos that turns out to be wrong,
then the whole structure starts looking a bit shaky.
Yeah.
We have to use his known scientific errors, and they were big ones, to maybe question the metaphysics too.
Like what specifically?
Well, the obvious ones. Geocentrism, Earth at the center. That was Aristotle.
Right.
And the idea that planets must move in perfect circles, because circles were, the perfect shape.
Which we now know isn't true. Planets move in ellipses.
Correct. But think about the impact. These ideas became embedded in Western thought for centuries.
To the point where challenging them later, well, it caused chaos, didn't it? You mentioned the sources talk about endangering the Catholic Church's authority in the Middle Ages.
Absolutely. When people like Copernicus and Galileo came along and said, actually the Earth moves, it wasn't just a scientific correction. It shook the foundations of a worldview built partly on Aristotelian physics. It shows how risky it is to tie your metaphysics too tightly to your current science.
Okay, so the science was wrong. But let's perk that for a second. You mentioned the unmoved mover concept itself has a kind of physical paradox.
Yes. Even setting aside the cosmology.
What's the paradox?
It's pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
In the physical world we experience, how does something completely static make something else move?
Right. Things move because they're pushed or pulled, forces applied.
Exactly. There are no examples, none, of a truly static object just sitting there and causing motion in something else through direct physical means. So the unmoved mover can't be working like a billiard ball hitting another one.
So, if it's not physical force, how does this totally unmoving thing get the entire universe moving? What's the mechanism?
This is where it gets more subtle. It's not exertion, it's attraction.
Attraction?
Yeah, an aspirational pull. Everything in the cosmos desires or seeks to imitate the perfection of the unmoved mover. It's drawn towards it.
Like iron filings to a magnet, but without magnetism.
Sort of, but the force is desire, the aspiration to achieve that perfect static state. The UMM influences just by being perfect.
That's really different from how we think about cause and effect now, like Newtonian physics.
Totally different. It's not about energy transfer.
Yeah.
The sources give that great proverb analogy. The peach and plum trees do not speak, yet paths form naturally beneath them.
Okay. People are drawn to the desirable fruit. The trees don't have to do anything. Their existence is enough.
Precisely. That passive attraction, that's the engine of Aristotle's cosmos.
Okay, understanding that mechanism movement by desire, by aspiration, that really does sound familiar. It sounds like Plato.
Bingo! You got it. This didn't just appear out of nowhere. The unmoved mover is definitely the philosophical descendant of Plato's idea of the good.
Okay, walk us through that lineage. What did Plato's good have that Aristotle, adapted?
Well, Plato's idea of the good is kind of the ultimate reality. It's the source of all existence, all knowledge. But, and here's the key similarity, it also transcends existence. It's beyond the everyday world.
And how does it influence things?
Plato uses the sun analogy. The sun lets you see everything, it gives life, right?
Right.
But the sun itself isn't changed by the things it illuminates.
Yeah.
It just shines. It provides the light, the possibility of knowledge and existence without being affected. That's the model.
Huh?
Unchanging, guiding, illuminating. Aristotle basically took that structure for his mover.
When you describe it like that, this ultimate unchanging self-sufficient guide, it really starts to sound, well, theological.
It does, doesn't it?
Do the sources talk about the religious feel of this?
They do. And it's an important point. The vibe of both Plato's good and Aristotle's mover, this kind of supreme entity existing apart, it actually feels closer to the powerful, maybe aloof gods of Greek mythology, like Zeus, perhaps.
Interesting. More like Mount Olympus than, say, the later Christian concept of a personal intervening god.
Exactly. The cultural context seems more rooted in that Greek mythological framework initially.
That makes sense. Now, sticking with lineage for a second, was it always a straight line from Plato? Or did other ideas creep in? The sources mention something about Plotinus.
Yeah, there's a bit of a question mark there with Plotinus and his concept of the one, which came later and was super influential. Was he purely developing Plato's ideas, or was he perhaps already picking up on early Christian philosophical currents that were starting to circulate?
So the streams might have started mingling early on.
It's hard to know for sure, but it shows these ideas weren't developing in total isolation.
Okay, let's fast forward. This Platonic Aristotelian system, with the UMM at its heart, it dominated Western thought for, almost 2,000 years.
Pretty much, yeah. It was huge.
So when thinkers finally started to push back, to really question it, who was leading that charge, and what were they proposing instead of this single static center?
Well, you can't talk about dismantling this without talking about Nietzsche.
Nietzsche, okay.
He wasn't just targeting the unmoved mover specifically, but the whole worldview it represented, that Platonic Aristotelian, single-directional way of thinking, and the value system built on it.
Okay, unpack single-directional worldview for us. What does that mean practically for you, the listener?
It means if the unmoved mover is the ultimate good, the one perfect destination everything aims for, then there's only one right way to be. One fixed truth, one objective morality, one path.
And Nietzsche rejected that.
Absolutely. He argued values aren't fixed and eternal. They're human creations. They shift. They depend on perspective. He was attacking the very idea of a static external blueprint for how to live.
So if philosophy and maybe even physics started moving away from that sun model, one central thing dictating the direction, what replaced it? What's the preferred model now?
Well, the critique really focuses on that uniqueness, that centrality of the UMM, instead of one static source outside the system. Modern thinking often prefers models of causality that are more non-directional or even omnidirectional.
Can you give us an analogy for that, like the sun versus...
Right. So if the UMM is the sun shining down, pulling everything towards it, maybe the modern view is more like a web or a field.
Oh,
Influence isn't coming from just one spot. It's everywhere, interacting, spreading out. Things affect each other mutually within the system. It's more decentralized, more dynamic, maybe.
that helps visualize this shift. Now, before we wrap up, I thought the point about historical reception was really interesting. How different cultures seem to grab onto the philosophy that fit their, psychological moment.
Yeah, that's a really insightful point from the sources. You see a pattern. Plato's philosophy, with its focus on perfect Rome beyond this messy world, it resonated in the late Roman Empire.
Which was pretty chaotic and declining, right?
Exactly. So a philosophy that kind of devalued the current reality and pointed towards a transcendent ideal.
Yeah.
That had appeal. It offered a sort of philosophical escape.
Whereas Aristotle, he was more about affirming this world.
Right. His focus on observing, categorizing, understanding the material world we live in, That really clicked during the Golden Age of Islam.
A time of great scientific and cultural flourishing.
So a philosophy that encouraged studying the observable world, that affirmed its value, that was a perfect fit for their intellectual energy and their, empire-building confidence.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. We've dived deep into Aristotle's unmoved mover, the static origin point he came up with to solve that tricky infinite regress problem and give the universe a goal.
An elegant solution, incredibly influential for centuries.
But built on an assumption of stasis, tied to physics we now know were wrong, and promoting a single-direction view of reality that many modern thinkers just don't buy anymore.
Right. Which leaves us, and you the listener, with a pretty big question to chew on. Okay, so Aristotle's cosmology, the crystal spheres, Earth at the center, we know that's wrong. If we also accept that the unmoved mover concept itself might be fundamentally flawed, maybe because it leans on those faulty premises, then what? What kind of metaphysics, what kind of system for ultimate causes do we need to build instead?
Yeah. If the ultimate why isn't a static point of perfection pulling us forward, where does movement begin, and what defines a goal, if anything?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Rebuilding from the ground up, perhaps.
A lot to think about. That's definitely the challenge. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.